All right, great. So, hello. My name is Gabriel Paiva, and today we are going to be talking about introduction to control rig. And let me just, pop in. Hello. All right. So, let me talk a little bit about what we're going to be learning today. Okay, this is not going to be the cup of tea for everybody in the audience, and we're going to find also many people who are going to be a little bit beyond of what we are going to be teaching today. So what we're going to try to do is simply, right, to get to know, to get you around how to create a control rig, work with it, create simple controls, right, understand the actual UI of the control rig editor, and we are going to be using it, of course, and we're going to be rigging something really simple at the end, all right, if time permits, all right? So that being said, let's jump in, right? We're going to disappear, and here we are. And, all right, here it is. So this is what we're going to be running today. All right, this XXX means like there is tons of stuff, inside here. Don't you worry, that's all right. But let's go straight in this slide. All right, let's talk first of all, the whole thing already constructed and how it works. Okay, so let's jump into the engine just for a second so you can see, how or what is a control rig asset. So let's jump in here. And if you have, our content open, this is what you should be seeing, right? We're going to be working mostly here in the control rig section. Inside this control rig folder, you're going to find the control rig content that you can download from the marketplace, right? Free from Epic. And here we have, characters, props, right? And we're going to open up where it says characters. And inside here, we're going to have, Punchy Man, all the mannequins, and this robot mech, right? We're going to get inside our mannequin folder. And inside here, you're going to see that we have a rig folder, right? Let's open up that one. And let's see what we have here. So we have a bunch of stuff. So don't be scared by, all these different control rigs. But this tells us a lot about what a control rig is. So it will not only allow you to create animations, but it's also used, beyond that. So we're going to have some that are called like food IK, and we're going to find some that are called procedural, right? So these two are used, in other applications inside character animation, right? The one that we are going to be discussing, right, is going to be this one that is called CR Mannequin Body Control, and this one that is called the basic biped, right? Let's how we start here. Should we create a new one? Let me talk a little bit about, this duality right here. So how come, right? And many of you that comes from other DCCs like Maya, how come, the mannequin has these many, control rigs? Well, that is because a control rig inside Unreal Engine is an asset, and it's an asset that is tied up to the actual skeletal mesh that that it controls in that sense. So, and it can have many of those, right? And you can even create some very specific for a particular, use. So, for example, this one is very basic, and this one is a little bit more complex, and they will have like different possibilities, of creating animation inside Unreal. So that is the first lesson that you're going to learn here, and that is that this is modular. You can have many different control rigs for the same character, and you don't even have to rig the whole body. Like you can have like a hand rig just to create hand poses, and that is going to be more than okay, right? In that sense. All right, so how to create one of these? Well, that is going to be really easy. First thing is to understand that you're going to create a control rig for a particular skeletal mesh, right? Not for a skeleton, weirdly enough, right? Because we want to really move the skeleton. But the thing is that let's go back one folder, and now we're going to open up the mesh folder, right? And inside the mesh folder, we're going to have, all the different new and advanced and evolved mannequins from Epic, right? So we have two of each kind. We're going to have the Manny and Queen, but also we have, these Manny simple. So let's check them out. Just, let's open them up, and let's open them up with what is called the the skeletal mesh editor. So we can see a little bit of, the difference. So this gets a little bit clearer. So the simple, if we open it up, we're going to see that it's sort of like the old mannequin bone structure, right? So it has, enough bones to make it move correctly, right? We're going to have mainly, the only big difference are, these twist bones, right? But for the rest, it's just, business as usual. So let's now open up the new one, right? The one that is not simple. And you can see that this one have, many other, amount of bones, in it, right? And if you, for example, choose to pick like an arm, right, and you move it, you're going to see that something strange happens, right? You can see that these two bones start moving, holding the actual shape of your character, right? You can give it volume, where it needs, so it doesn't collapse at the joint. Well, that is one of those great uses of control brick, believe it or not. All right. So the control brick that is called procedural is the one that is in charge of doing, this kind of process, right, on top of the movement of your character. So right now we're going to create, and this is just, just an example of what you can do with control brick. We're going to do something much easier, in that sense. So the next thing is, all right, how to create a new control brick. So control bricks are assets, and we know that we can create assets by right-clicking on an empty spot in our content browser, and it's going to be as easy as, searching for it. So let's start typing control, not control, but control brick. And all right, give me just a second. Control rig. Here it is, right? So we can create, we can create a control brick on its own, right? And you can see that it is an asset. Now, the easiest way to create one, so you have it already attached to whatever skeletal mesh that you're going to create, it's going to be to right-click on that particular skeletal mesh. Now, we gotta choose, right, if we want to use the simple or the complex Manny, right, in this sense, because again, as you see, the actual control brick gets attached to a particular skeletal mesh, not the actual skeleton, right? So let's right-click on the simple Manny, right? And let's right-click on it. And if we go up here, where it says create, we're going to have an option down here that is called control brick. And we're going to be able to create a control brick that is associated with this particular skeletal mesh. So let's do it. And that's it. We get, and it's cool because now we have, the full name, right? SKM, mannequin, simple, control brick, and everything. Yeah, everything's connected. So that's fine. So let's save it out, right? And let's open it up. And we're going to start checking out the actual editor, right? So what you see right here, once you double click on that asset, it's what is called the control brick editor, right? It's very common, like everything nowadays inside Unreal, every window tends to, gravitate around, a node editor like this one right here. And this is where we're going to be doing most of our work, right? When we create our controls. And then, of course, we have this beautiful viewport. This one is used for many things, not only to check out, the actual and check, the hierarchy and all the bones that are inside, our character, but also will allow us to test our control brick once we start adding our controls and creating our control nodes, right? So it's very useful in that term. The next thing is down here, we're going to have a couple of tabs, right? And we're mainly going to focus in the rig hierarchy, right? And this, to as a start, we're going to have the list of all the bones inside our character, right? This is mainly why I choose, the simple one, because yeah, the other one has like twice the amount of bones, right? And we want to keep it simple, for this one. And so here it is. All right. So if some of you are not, seeing the actual bone structure inside here, remember that this viewport works exactly as other viewports, like the one on the animation on the skeletal mesh editor. And you're going to have, all those menus up here, where from character, you're going to be able to, check on, the amount of bones that you want to be displayed, right? And the nice thing, you see what I did there? Now I created this thing that I can, create like a little button here. Well, this, it's like I'm hoping that these start rolling on other editors. If you go here to bones and you select none and you shift click on that options, now you can, turn off or turn on your hierarchy. Very, very convenient. And you can do that with, all of the different options that you can get from here, right? Another thing that we're going to check out, very soon are other options that are around here, but let's don't rush ourselves, right? Let's now talk a little bit about the actual, so the rest of these tabs down here. So we're going to have an execution stack, and you're going to see very soon that this is like a blueprint in terms that it will be read out in a sequential order, and you cannot read like two things at the same time or two nodes at the same time. So everything needs to be behind the next node, right? So that is how it's going to execute. And if you have, any doubt on how your actual control rig is executing, this one is a really good debug, right? We have now the ability of also, we had all the time, yeah, from the conception, we can move morphs and curves. Well, Unreal calls them curves. If you come from Maya, it's going to be plane shapes. If you come from, other places, it's going to be called a morph. So you can also, test your morphs right inside here before you start, creating the controls for those. And then we have my blueprint, and this is really out of the scope of what we're going to be teaching today. So let's forget about this one, all right? But this, in turn, what it will allow you to do is to connect your control rig to other control rigs and to other functionalities outside of your control rig, like other blueprints, animation blueprints, et cetera, et cetera. For example, that one that we just checked, that when you bend an arm, like it gets volume, like everything was, created inside this My Blueprint, right? You can create variables that will hold values in times, and you're going to create like other different events, right? And we're going to be talking on these events really soon, right? Later on, we have details. So whatever you select is going to have some details attached to it, right? And that is good. So depending if you select a bone, a control, an event, a node, you're going to have some, different attributes that you're going to be playing, right, on this side. You have the preview scene. This is mostly, very common in all other skeletal mesh editors. Like you can control how you see your character, the actual mesh that is going to be attached to it, and et cetera, et cetera. And all animations are connected to your character, right? That's good. Cool. Let's go back to details and leave it there. And we are going to start talking about how, the actual control rig works. So the main idea behind a control rig is to animate the least amount of bones, right, that, you can feel comfortable with, and to actually get the keys and the animation in the controls instead of the raw bones, right? So that is the main idea. So it should, it should have some functionality to it in terms of, it's hard to go and pick a bone. So it should be, noticeable and very easy to pick, right? So you can simply click from the viewport and you should be able to be on your way animating that knee or that ankle or that, wrist, right? Or the neck. And the other thing is that you can create chains and more complex way of moving chains. And that will reduce the actual amount of bones that you need to, the actual amount of controls that you are going to need to animate, right? So those are the two goals behind a good control rig. So let's start creating one right out of the bat, right? So here it is. We have what is called an event, and this event is called the forward solve. The forward solve is going to be the one that is going to allow you to your controls to move the actual bone, right, and skeleton, right? That is what is called the forward solve. You move a control, and that control should be moving X, name of a bone inside your hierarchy, right? But there are others, that we can talk about right now, and that will give us, a little bit of an intro on how to create nodes inside your node graph, and that is achieved the same way as any other, node graph. You right-click on an empty space on your node graph, and then you can search. And we're going to search, the contrary, right, of a forward solve, and that is going to be our backward solve, right? We have it right here. And the backward solve, it's going to do the exact opposite. So it's going to allow bones to change the orientation and the position of your controls. So what would we be using this one? Well, this one is the one that is used when you want to get an animation that is being run by bones in your sequencer, and you want to pass it on to your controls. So that way you're going to you can change, modify, detail, that animation with your control rig, right? So with this one, you animate from scratch, right? And from this one, you take an animation that is already in a sequencer and you bake it into your controls. And then you can go forward, right? Forward, you see what I did there? With the rest of the animation, right? So these two are very, very important. Today, we're mainly going to, create a couple of controls, right? Very easy. And we're going to be talking about just the forward solve, for just, that this one is here. We're also going to talk about another one, a little bit later, right? That it's going to allow you, it's called the construction state, right? But let's not rush. And let's start creating some simple control for our money right here, right? So the first control that we're going to create are called forward kinematics control. So a forward kinematic control means that it's going to be a one-to-one control over the bone. So whatever the control does, whatever the bone does, right? So the control moves, the bone follows. That is how, a forward control works. So we're going to create a simple root control, at the base of our money. And let's see how that goes, right? And how we can start creating those controls. So the easiest way nowadays to create a control is to simply select the bone that you want to control, and you're going to hold Control and hit N. And that is going to create a new control. And you cannot see it right now, but that is because it's hidden, below the whole hierarchy of all the bones, right, that are under the root. But as you can see, it's going to be parented to the root. And, by design, that is how it happens, right? When you click a bone and you click Control N, it is convenient because it already gives you, the position of that bone, and will also name the actual control. So it's very convenient to have it that way. But the fact that is, nested inside the actual root is not that good, because you're going to start having like double transforms and stuff like that. So the root is going to be moving the the control root is going to be moving the root, and the root is going to be moving the control, and you get that double transformation. So the next thing that I would do is to simply take it out of the hierarchy, all right? And you're going to see how convenient that is, all right? So as soon as you select your root, Control N, that will create the root control. You're going to hit Shift P, and that is going to unparent, all right, that control right there. And now it's going to be outside the hierarchy of your bones. And, let's try that same thing for something like the pelvis, right? And let's see how easy, that is. So I want to create a control that is going to be right here at the pelvis. And I want it to be named Control Pelvis, right? So I'm going to select the pelvis bone. I'm going to hit Control N. And now I'm going to collapse, my hierarchy here. So I cannot collapse it like that. I will collapse it so I can see the actual pelvis control nested inside the pelvis. And all I need to do with the pelvis control selected is to hit Shift P. That is going to unparent that pelvis from the pelvis, that pelvis control from the pelvis bone. And now I just created two controls, all right? But let's see, the pelvis control is a little bit hidden, right? Nowadays, you can, you cannot see it, within the shape of our character, right? So what we can do is let's select that pelvis control and let's give it a shape, all right? And those shapes are going to be right here in the details. Forget about, this transform and everything. Let's concentrate on this part here where it says shape. And when we look at the one that we created for the root, you can see that it's just a sphere, right? And we may want to have like a different representation of our control right there. So we're going to switch that default shape, right? That is that solid sphere into something a little bit, better for a waist control, right? So let's trust in the circle thick, right? This one should be good enough, right? Let me choose that. And now if we look at it while we have it selected right here in our inside our viewport, we can see that, all right, it changed shape, but it's still too small. So let's make it a little bit bigger. So let's go down here where it says the actual shape transform. Please do not, mistake it for the actual transform of that little control there. You want to be only altering, the actual scale. The actual shape transform, right? So now let's go to this scale. Let's lock it and let's make it, 3 times as big. All right, that seems to be right a little bit smaller. Let's hit 5. That's a little bit better. Let's hit 4. That's good, right? And now, it's the wrong axis for sure. So let's say that we rotate it, and we can see that we have the actual rotation axis that we're going to need, and that is going to be the Y, the jaw, right? This one right here. So this one is a peach, sorry. And let's rotate it 90 degrees, and that's it. So the cool thing about this particular shape transform is that you can see that I change, the orientation of the shape, but the actual axis of the control keeps being, the exact same. And that is good because then you can have, your controls oriented the way you want it and not change, the actual axis, of the control. Because as I just said, a forward kinematic is a one-to-one control. So that means that this control, when I create it under the pelvis, now have the exact position and rotation of that pelvis and the actual orientation of that pelvis. So I don't want to go and mess about, the actual transform. I just want to transform the shape of it, right? Let's say that, one is the actual control and the other one is the representation of that control, right? Hope that is, really, really clear, right? So you can also, go nuts and, create different controls, make them, all beautiful. Let's choose, the diamond thick and stuff like that, right? But that I'm going to leave it to you to make, the artist. I'm going to keep with this circle thick, and I'm going to be happy with it. All right. That's good. Now that means that I have two controls, which is good. But now what to do with them? How do I connect them, to the actual bone? Well, that is very simple. I'm going to grab this backward solve and hide it, down there. So it's not going to be on the way, because I want us to concentrate on the forward solve, right? So be sure that whatever we're going to be, performing right now, it's going to be connected to our forward solve. So we need two things. We need the actual control, right? So let's grab our root control, drag it and drop it inside our node. And that is going to give us a set of options. So what do we need, from this control? We need to get the actual information of it, right? Because we want to know where it is and where it could be, at any point in time or in any frame. And I need to get that information. So let's go and create, a get control node. And here it is, all right? So as you see, is pretty universal. It will get you, anything. So it will work for anything. It is called, the get transform node, but it could work for a bone, a null, a curve, whatever. In this case, is assigned to a control. The name of the control is right here. It will list you, all the controls that you have, available. And then you're going to have, what space is going to be on. For now, we're going to work everything in global space. Don't you worry about this one. This is going to be okay, all right? And this initial, let's not use it for any, for control. Let's leave it always off, right? And that's it. So this will spit out, an actual transform. And the transform is going to, if you click on this little arrow that has here, you can see that all the components, right, of that transform is going to have rotation, translation, and scale, right? And each of them can have, their own sockets, to connect it to something. But in this case, we're going to be using the full transform, right? So what's next? I need the bone, right? So I know that that this is the root control. Well, let's grab the actual root bone. Let's drag it over, drop it into our node graph, right? And in this case, we're not going to get the bone. We need to set the bone. We want to set the actual transformation for this particular bone. So let's do it. Let's simply, set that bone right there, and that's it. So you can see that this one, it's a little bit different, right? It will have some input. If you open up this item, it will let you know, that is a bone and is exactly the root bone, the one that we want to, perform some transforms on it, right? So this is good. We can close it up. And then we have a value. So now we can, say, connect our transform. Let's click and drag, from this socket to that socket. And now we have our the control transform connected to the set transform of our bone. And that should do it, right? But we need one more thing, and that is to actually connect the execution thread, right, from our forward solve to our execute content, right? And that's it. Now, one of the best things about this editor is that it will auto compile, right? So most of the time, just by selecting and connecting something, it's going to be already, compiled. Let's test that theory. So now I'm going to select, and as you can see, my actual root control is not, a good control because I cannot select it. So let me just, swap it for something like circle solid. Let's make it a little bit bigger, maybe 5. And all right, before I do that, let me, now it's going to be 5. So now it's a proper control. Now I can click it, right? And I'm going to try to move it, and that's it. You can see that it auto, compile, right? It says 30, but 30 is good. 30 is very good. But in this case, we can simply connect something, and that is going to be auto compile, and we can, start testing our control break right there, right? Good. Now, there are a couple more things that we can do. We can see that the actual, waist control is not, connected to our pelvis. So let's do that. So what if I already moved that thing, right? And I wanted to, come right to the center as it was. You are going to be very tempted to use Control C. Well, this is the first rule of Control Rig Fight Club, to never hit Control C or undo to get your controls to where they are, because that will to the actual undo of the last thing that you did, and not the actual movement of the control. And the second rule about Fight Club of Control Rig, and that is, do not hit Control C, right? For that, you are going to have a designated undo for your controls. And to get your control to the resting position, you're going to hit Control G. You're going to remember it because of Gabriel. Gabriel told you that. So it's Control Gabriel, right? So that's it. So if you move a control, you simply hit Control G, and that should work. Now, be notice that if you don't have any control selected, if you hit Control G, it won't do anything, right? So you need to at least have one control selected to do that. But if you hit Control Shift G, it doesn't do anything either, because you need to have, it used to work that way, but nowadays you need to have at least one control pertinent to that particular control rig, right? To move, all the controls to the resting position. So that means that if I move that control there and that control there, if I just select one of them and hit Shift Control G of Gabriel, you're going to have all your controls in the resting position or initial positions. All right. So now let's create a little bit of for our kinematics for our spine, right? For our pelvis. So let's do exactly the same. Now we're going to work a little bit faster, right? We're going to grab our pelvis, get control, grab our pelvis, and set bone. And we're going to connect the actual transform to the value. And let's connect the execution in thread. That's it. Now we can grab our pelvis control. And now I have a pelvis, right? That I can, move all around. And I have also a root control, right? That should be moving everything below it. But that is the thing. The same way we have a hierarchy of bones, we're going to start thinking of a hierarchy of controls, because if we don't, we're going to lose what is called the space, the actual space of that control. So we're going to be devising like an original parenting, to all these controls, but so you can switch, that particular parenting, or switching the space in which that control is acting through sequencer. And there's going to be a full class about that, right? So what we're going to be devising here in terms of this parenting is going to be just, like an initial kind of hierarchy, right? So, all right, let's hit Control Shift G. Let's return everything to as it was. And I'm going to grab that pelvis control, and I'm going to throw it onto the root control. And now I have a hierarchy of controls. I have a hierarchy of bones, and I have also a hierarchy of controls, right? So now I can grab, my root, and my root is going to be moving, right? Our pelvis control. And now I'm going to have a pelvis control that will have a separate movement from the root. And that is exactly, what we should be doing, right? We can continue doing this, with the full, spine, and that way we're going to be able to create more intricate, type of controls, right? But it's going to be just rinse and repeat, right? It's going to be exactly the same as we're doing here. And that is going to get boring really soon. So I'm going to jump to something a little bit more spice up, and that is to create an IK control. So IK, it means inverse kinematics. So we know that this thing right here is a forward kinematic control. We're going to create now what is called an inverse kinematic control. And in layman terms, it's going to be a chain control, right? So chains inside Unreal will have, or we're going to be creating, nowadays you have like a spline control where it's like an IK that you can control more than 3 bones. But normally the basic IK node will be able to control 3 bones with just 1 effector, right? And let's do that. And this is the kind of control that we're going to find always, in all of our, extremities, right? Because we have an upper bone, right? An upper arm, we have a lower arm, and we have a wrist somewhere around here. Now this thing has so many bones that it's going to be hard to find the wrist, but it's okay. So let's create one of those. So first thing first, we need to create the actual controls, right? So I'm going to search here for a hand. Let me search for a hand, right? And here it is. I have my left hand bone right here, right? And here is where I'm going to get the actual effector. And the effector is going to be that control that is going to let me pop in like this. So your control is going to be here, and it's going to be like if you're dragging, right? That control, and you're going to be moving it. And that control is going to move the chain, of your lower arm and your upper arm, all right? And it's going to, do all the math to make things look like you're, like if you're a pro animator, right? But it's going to be, just that chain, moving around with just 1 effector, right? So let's go and create that. Again, the same deal. Let's choose a hand, Control N, Shift P, and now we should have a hand L control. Very, very convenient, right? And I'm going to drop my search. So now I have, all my controls down here. And we are going to need to create, let's, grab it, drop it inside because we're going to need it, right? Get control. It's going to be right here. I have my effector control, right here. That is good. And now I will need to create a very new node, right? And this one is going to be a little bit different. This one is going to be called the IK, basic IK. This one right here, right? Don't be fooled by the basic fabric or the full body IK or the CCD something IK. Is the basic IK, the one that we're going to be working right now. And this is what we get, right? So good. Everything seems to be very, very fine. We need now to start, filling out the form, right? This is like going to the DMC. You need to start, filling on the blanks. And as you see, the actual basic IK have 3 bones, a chain exactly compiled by 3 bones. So we need to go exactly from top to bottom, filling up this list. So we're going to go name, right? And this one is going to be our upper arm left, right? The next one is going to be our elbow, that in this character is called the lower arm left, right? And then it's going to end up on the wrist, right? And that in this character bone hierarchy is called the hand. So we need a hand here. And it's going to be the left. Try to keep it, left, 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 because yeah, it's going to look very wonky. Oh, like right now. But yeah, trust me, this is not an issue. So what is happening down here is, and let me pop in again. When you have like 1 effector, you are going to be facing 1 big issue, and that is the elbow. We need something, right, to tell us like where that elbow should be pointed, right? Because if we don't, then it's going to always be, like this dude with, his elbows, close to the body and, doing things like this, right? We need a way to point, that elbow, and that we're going to achieve by creating what is called a pole vector. It's called weird. It's a pole vector control, right? Let me pop out. And right now, it's going to be hard for us to create that control, because now that pole vector, and that is what we have right. Oh, sorry. Let's talk about the pole vector a little bit. The pole vector right now is at 0, 0, 0. And, it's pointing to be at the center of the scene. So that's why it's so weird. But also we forgot to actually connect our effector. So let's do that. Let's grab, our hand left control and connect it to the actual effector. And that's going to make it a little bit better, but you can see that the actual elbow is pointing at something, and that something is, the 0, 0 of our scene. So let's fix that, right? To fix it, sadly, we're going to have to disconnect our basic IK just for a tad, right? I'm going to simply click here, and you can see the actual lower arm bone, returning to the actual original position. And now we're going to select it, right? As usual, lower arm left. This one is going to be good enough. We're going to hit Control N and Shift P. And now we can go, and remove all filtering. We go to the end of our line, and here it is. We have the lower arm L control. This one, really, if you want, you can change the name of it, because it might get in the way if you later on want to create something like an forward kinematic control for your N or M. It's N of new, not M like in new. All right. So we're going to maybe change a little bit, the name of this one. So this one is going to be the IK underscore pole. And that's it, right? Simply because, again, it might get confused, right, with the actual forward kinematics lower arm, control, right? That's the only reason why. And that's it. Now it needs to be really pointing at that place, right? So you can see that it does have, an actual direction, right? And it's almost, it's the middle of that should have like a math name. I don't know. Is the dissection of the angle, maybe, right? And it's right at the middle. So that might be like a good way of pulling it out, right? And if it doesn't look like that, make sure that your transform gizmo is set to local instead of world, right? And you can take that, and that is like the actual pointing, right? You can see it there, like the actual elbow is pointing, in this direction. And, a little bit back, that is going to be more than enough, right? But now we have an issue, and that is that we move the actual control, right? And it's not in the original position. So if I hit Control G, it will return, right? It will snap back, right, where we created. So we need to do one more step. And that step is going to be drag it out, put it around there, right? And we're going to right click on the actual pole left control, and we're going to set offset transform from current, right? So we are going to reset the resting position of this control right there where we, pull it out of the elbow, right? So we're going to hit there. Remember, set offset transform from current, and that's it. That means that if I, move it around and hit Control G, it's going to, get back to that original position, right? That is awesome. Now everything is going to be working fine, fine, fine. So now let's connect, our basic IK right there. And let's see, we're going to find a little bit more issues here, but we're going to fix them pretty soon. But now we need to actually connect our pole vector, right? And we just created it down here. I'm going to drag it, drop it here, get control. And now we have a little bit of an issue. And that is that actually, the pole vectors just use the position, don't use either scale or rotation, right? So this is not going to work if I try to connect this to that, because, this is a transform, this is just position. So what we need to do is to click in the little arrow, and that is going to open up, all the components of that transform. And now I can drag just from the translation or position of it, right? And I'm going to connect that to the pole vector, and everything gets, wonky and bad. So there are going to be a couple of things that we're going to need to do to make everything looks right. And it has to do with what is called the primary axis and the secondary axis, all right? And let's resum it into just saying one arm is going to be the opposite of the other one. By default, it will come X, and X down and Y forward, right? So that is what we wish to have. So how we can check, how this actual bone was, devised by the actual rigger? Well, let's again disconnect our basic IK, and I want to select my upper arm just for a tad, and let's check out the actual direction. So it's there, it's very tiny. So if you want to make it a little bit bigger, we can go here to view options, and we can display axis on selection, right? Remember, view scene setup. This one is different from other viewports. Scene setup, and we can turn on display axis on selection. And now we can see that if I select, this bone, we can see that we have X down and Y forward, right? And all right, let's try to put that information here. And that is what it is, right? Is X forward, right? And Y also forward. I want to try and see what would happen if I set these to negative, right? So again, it doesn't make much sense, right? Because we just checked, right, that this goes down and these go forward. Well, Unreal wants it to be this one down and this one, back for some reason, right? This is how at least, the left arm works, right? And now everything should be looking a little bit better, right? So remember, if you do the other arm, it's going to be minus X on the primary and positive Y on the secondary axis, right? That's simply how it works. Cool. So now let's test that our control is working. I'm going to grab my control and start moving my arm. And it's great. And I can also rotate it, right, in local axis, just like this. And I can say, hello, all right? And if the elbow is like too low, I can grab my pole vector, right? And I can, pull it up a little bit, just like that. And there it is. Now I can have this one. And I have my pole vector, right, to help me on, to help me pointing that particular elbow, right? And that's it. That is, a simple, basic IK. Cool. All right. Let's do one more. Let me check my time and see that we are okay. We're nearing half the time. And I think that in this little amount of time, 8 minutes, I'm going to be able to create an aim control, right? That is the other one that we could use, right? To minimize the amount of controls that, we can use on a character. And in this case, it's going to be for the head, right? So let's select, our head bone, right? And we're going to hit Control N as usual. And we're going to hit Shift P as usual. And we're going to see that we have a new control down here that is called head control. And we're going to drag it, this one, we're going to select it and drag it out and drag it maybe a little bit up, right? Like at the gaze, position of the eyeless mannequin. But yeah, we want this control to control the actual position and gaze of our head, right? So what we need to do is, first of all, remember that we are offsetting the control from the original place that we created. So we want to right-click on it, and we want to set offset, transform from current, right? So that means that now if I move it somewhere else and I hit Shift, Control G, here it is. It's going to be right there, right? So I'm going to put back this here. All right, so forward solve is for IK and backward solve is for FK. No. Let's break it this way. So forward solving, even though it's called, the other one is forward kinematics, right? It's weird that they choose the same name, but forward is going to be more into the sense of as forward as if I grab a control and I move it, a bone should follow, right? That is forward, right? Backward is going to be when the actual animation is in the bone and we want to bake it into a control so we can use, our beautiful control brick to keep animating on top of that animation, right? We're going to get there. We're going to have a full hour, right, of playing with control brick, all right? Applying it to the sequencer, start playing around a little bit with it, sharing it with other characters, maybe, right? So keep on, and we are going to be good. So let's keep on talking about this gaze control, right? So this gaze control right here, we need to create an aim, and let's drag it from there. Create an aim, and you have now an aim constraint. This is not the one; it's just the one that is called aim under hierarchy. And that's it. We have one of those right here. And this one is very, very simple, right? I'm going to show you why. First of all, you can choose right here the particular bone that you want to, use to actually turn around and follow, the actual control. And in this case, it's going to be our head bone. And that's it. All right. That's it. We're ready. We can... it's ready for production. Now, also, here we're going to have these issues, right, with axis and target and all that. So the first thing is that we need to actually assign the target. And in this case, we're not going to be pulling, this is weird, right? We're not going to be pulling the head control on our node graph. We can change it right here. So we can go to the actual, so let me open up the actual target space, and this will allow you to create the actual connection, right, to what is going to be following. So it's not going to be a bone. Remember, in target space, open it up. Instead of a bone, it's going to be a control, and instead of known, it's going to be the head control, right? So, all right, that's it. We are done. No, still this is like, what? What did you say? All right. So this is going to be as easy as, fixing not only our primary, axis, but also our secondary axis. And it's going to be like a mutual effort here, all right, to make this thing work, all right? So first of all, let's set, our X to 0 and see what happens, all right? That's good. What if I set my Y? Nope. Maybe it's my C to 1. Nope. Maybe is, oh, I know. Sorry. Let me go down here on my secondary and be sure that all my axes are set to 0, right? That's good. Now, that being said, this is not going to be working if you don't set an actual axis, but let's reset all of our axes, right, to see, what gives. First of all, right? Then with our primary and secondary axes at 0, we can start playing with what is going to be this one. And I'm thinking it's going to be Y1. And all right, that seemed to work. I could see him, activating like, right? If I connect it like, all right, that is good. So that means that, all right, there it is. Are you working? Sure. All right, cool. So Shift, Control G, and now I want to check this one out. So what if we want this to be a little bit of the exorcist type of movement? And you can see that we have a little bit of a turn around the axes down there. Well, we're going to solve that by using also the secondary axis, right? And I'm thinking, let me just remember, if it's no, is it no, is it X? It X, but it's -1, all right? So it's a little bit of trial and error, but there are just 3 possibilities. It's not like, yeah, we're going to be cracking a vault or something like that. But now if we set our secondary axis X to -1, and this is going to be very axis related, with the actual bone, right? This is going to be completely different if you're using something that is not this mannequin, right? So you're going to have to play, with these values, all right? In the case of the mannequin, the Y1 and the X -1 in the primary and secondary axis seems to be doing the thing, because now we can, hello. Your mother says hello. All right, good. I'm going to hit Control G, and we have an aim control, and it's completely working, right? He's going to look, right? Is it working? Oh no, it is working. All right, good. So we are at the hour. We're going to take 5 minutes to stretch our legs. Is that the fashion, right? Someone give me a thumbs up if that is right.
Yes, yes, boss. Can you zoom out a little bit on the blueprint so everybody can get a whole view of what's happening here?
Sure.
Thank you very much.
All right. All right, let's take 5 minutes. I'm going to set up my thingy here. Come on. Timer, 5 minutes. And that's it. I'll be back.
Gabriel, can you bring up the slate again just while we're on break?
All right, perfect. So the slate should be at the top. Is it this one?
Perfect. Thank you, Gabe.
All right. Be right back. Okay, so I'm going to give you like 20 more seconds, right? Where we are going to wait for, the arrival of everybody else. I want to thank, all the good, thoughts and messages in Slack. I love you all. Yeah, I try my best, to make complex things as easy as possible. Right, but let's now continue, right? So let's check out, our slides here, right? We learn, that we have more than one control rig. We can choose, whatever we want for our particular character, for a particular style of animation or particular animation needs, right? We know some of the features, right, that they are going to provide, like we're going to have FK controls, IK controls. We also have this new stretch, right? If we set up these new splines, right? We're going to be checking all that very soon when we, actually open our control rig and start playing with it. We got, to create our first control rig, right? And we see a little bit about, the actual control rig editor UI. And we got to see, all the different menus. And we explained a little bit about, the forward solve, the backward solve, and we're going to now be checking out this construction event. All right, this one is very, very cool. This was missing the first time they, launch, control rig, and it's very useful. You're going to see why very soon. And that's it. We created our first control, right? And then we created our first forward kinematic control, just like this one. We use, the actual set offset, right? Transform from current. So, you can also use, from closest bone if you, by mistake move the control and you want it exactly with the same transform, meaning, location and rotation of the bone, you can use that one. You can also offset the shape. I really won't use it anywhere because it's really confusing. Don't use it because you're going to have the actual control shape somewhere and it's going to be changing some other, other pivot somewhere else. And it's so confusing. So this one is horrible. But yeah, we also create, our first, FK control. So let's see, this is how fast we're going, right? So we are good. We got to create our first IK control, and we create our pole vector for that control. And you're going to be keeping, this deck if you want to, go slowly with the deck. I didn't want to take, too much time, explaining those controls. I hope I did, well, showcasing them. So yeah, we created our IK control, and so we can mirror it, but that will you will need to have like a perfect nomenclature or a naming convention. But so we're not going to cover it, but you can replicate your control rig from the left side to the right side. So you just need to really thank you very much. Like mirror your controls and everything. Just you gotta make sure that you have the actual naming convention, right? Really working. And mostly that's it. We created also an aim control, right? And now let's go for the good thing. So before we apply the control rig, we're going to be, swapping control rigs, and we're going to be, exploring everything about the control rig. And to do that, we really need to explain something really shortly. We're going to be talking about the backward solve real soon. So let's, put it down there. But as we explain, is the actual, it's a contrary, right, of what we do here. So let's create one like very fast. So in this case, the backward solve of our root control is going to be the opposite of that one. So it's going to be the actual, it's going to involve, of course, our root control, but we're going to set the control on our root control, right? And we're going to get the position and transform of our root bone, right? So as you see, it's exactly the opposite, right? And what this is going to be really good is for exactly that. This is going to be used when you are in sequencer and you want to bake an animation to your actual control rig. So you can then, use your curve editor, or we're going to have a full class about how to do that, right? So don't you worry. But it's exactly this, right? So what is then that other event that is called construction? Construction. My God. Here it is. All right. Sorry about that. My dyslexia was, getting the best of me there. So it's called the construction event, right? This construction event was the final node that control rig needed. And it's very smart because what it does is exactly what the backward solve does, but it will be done once, all right? So what that means, right? Why would I want all my controls to be in a particular position, right? Depending on the position of the bone? Well, because this is going, and mainly what you're going to do with the construction script is copying, your backward solve and pasting it on the construction event. What that will do is that no matter the proportion of the character that you want to apply that control rig, the root control is going to be exactly at the root bone at the start. As soon as you apply it to your character, it's going to run the construction event. And all the controls, no matter if that character happens to have, longer arms or, longer fingers, or disproportion, leg to torso radius, whatever, right? It will run a backward solve just once. So all the controls are going to fit neatly into all the bones. And yeah, you can share your control rig among characters that doesn't have the same size or proportions, right? So we're not going to be constructing one of those. We're mainly going to see how one of those work, all right? It's kind of when you bake the control rig in sequencer. Exactly, that's it. In fact, let's go do this. All right, this is good, but this is for nerds. So yeah, be gone. We're done with the control rig editor. Now let's do control rig, all right, in a practical manner, right? All right, so let's go. Let's do it. Give me just a second to clear my throat. All right, that was good. Cool. So yeah, this is our sad attempt of a control rig. And yeah, I wish we have a lot more time, to create a full this, but a good rig is a labor of a lifetime. Like you can go and lose yourself, creating all the controls that you want for that particular character. I don't know, Unreal being so modular, I wouldn't go and create the perfect rig. I will create like several different rigs, right? So let's check about that, right? So for example, let's go back, to our rig. I went back from mesh, one folder up, and then inside rigs. And let's test, this control rig mannequin body, right? Be sure that it's this one, not confuse it, either with the procedural or the body food IK, right? Let's test this one, the CR mannequin body control rig, right? To test it is, it's really, really easy. You can, I don't know if you knew that you can simply drag and drop a control rig into your scene. And that will do a couple of things all together. That will add the character, add a sequencer, right? And it's going to be, I'm guessing it's right outside in your content root. And it's going to even call it like take one. Such a beautiful thing, Unreal. All right. So that is, all those things are going to happen right there. And the actual sequencer is going to be added as an actor to your scene. So, well, it's a good way, right, to start testing your control rig. And this is it. This is what we get. We get, a sequencer. We get actor, a skeletal mesh, mannequin actor, assigned here on its actor track. And we also get the control rig right there for us to start working with it, right? So first of all, let's check what we get here. So we do have like a color coding to this thing, right? So everything yellow is forward kinematic control that is applied to the center or core of your character, right? As you can see, the root one, right? The global will, perform a global move of your whole character. Then you have things like the root control that will create a little bit of an offset. Sorry, it's called the body offset. This is not the one, so I'm going to hit Ctrl-Shift-G. The body offset will allow you to have an offset over, your global control, right? And then you're going to have things like the waist control, right? Whoop, 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 right? And then you're going to have, these the spline IK. For some reason, this one is mustard, but it does exactly the same. So this one will be the spine 1. This is going to be spine 2. This is going to be a spine 3. And now it's a time for a really fast lightning round of, of live quality of life changes in your UI. If you want a good rotation on your rotation UI, go to your viewport options and go to advanced settings, okay? And this is non-related, but it's so good that you really want to do it. You're going to see that down here, you're going to have the, here it is, in look and feel, you're going to get the enable arc ball rotate, right? And as soon as you enable that, you're going to see that you can click in the middle of the rotation and look at that, right? You don't need to click on an actual axis. You can click from there and you can start, posing your character. That is massive to know, right? The other one is called the screen rotate. And this is also very, very good because this one will allow you to, from wherever you're watching your character, you're going to have like a plane, on the plane of your viewport, and you're going to be able to use that as the plane of your rotation, right? Having those two is massive. So don't forget that they are there. You're going to have to enable that on each and every one of your projects if you want that to be true, right? That this is the kind of things in the editor preferences that even though it's called editor preferences, is not going to, permeate to the rest of your projects, all right? So yeah, keep that in mind. right? So having that, it will allow us to have a little bit more of a, of an attitude, right? Like, what up? What up? Right? Good. So that is, our control rig in motion. We have this central spine, everything is going to be yellow this way. We're going to have an offset also, this one that is called the body control. This one will move, the whole, how it's called, the whole middle body, right? And the nice thing is that you also have a little bit of so the ones that are like a hexagon can be rotated and move. The ones that are square are really made to be, move or rotate. And the ones that are circles, means that you should be just, or mainly you should be just rotating them, right? Like, for example, the neck, right? And for some reason, they choose this crown here, but you should rotate in this one. You should not be moving the head because, don't even go there. All right. So then you have controls for your clavicles, and you have the forward controls to your arms, right? So forward, forward, and forward. So you're going to be tempted to, as soon as you see your control rig, you're going to grab this control and say, all right, move there. And right, this is wrong. This is what is called a forward control. So it should not be moved. It's just to be rotated, right? And it's going to, let me hit Control G for that control. So this should be compacted with the rest of the rotation. So if you want that hand to be somewhere, you're going to need to, do the math, right? So I'm going to switch to local transform. Now you can put it around there, and then this one should be maybe around there, and maybe rotate it like this, and then that one is going to be like that. Say stop in the name of love. Right. So that is how a forward kinematic works. You need to do the work, right? You need to rotate everything until you get to a destination. Now, what if I want to switch that to a control like the ones on our feet? We have these ones that are a little bit different. These are IK controls. So yeah, you can move it up, forward, and do, ding, ding, ding. Everybody's going to fighting, right? So that is how an IK control works. It's, you have an effector, and this is how it works. And you're going to have your pole vector that it is on the space of the actual effector, right? So you can, clearly move it around and have your knee pointing wherever you want, right? You're going to have other controls here, like the tip of the ball, the roll of the feet, right? It's going to be right there. And if you had, and this is funny, you have finger controls for the mannequin, because if you remove the boot, you're going to have, no, it's just because it's the same control as the metahuman that does have fingers, it has toes, right? So that's why we have toe controls for the feet, not because, under this boot, there are fingers. This dude is a robot, so, this is no human inside there. All right, so cool. Now we know, a little bit about our control rig, but little did you know that if you go to the top control that is called global, right? And it, in fact, is this one right here. If you open it up, you're going to see that you have a bunch of switches, but you don't have to go, and do that, because nowadays we have this anim detail, and this will open up as soon as you change your animation, your mode to animation mode, right? So if I go to selection, it's not going to be there. I can still work, right, with control rig if I wanted to, but as soon as I click on a control rig, animation mode is going to be switched on, right? But so animation mode is another thing that will happen as soon as you drop a control rig in your scene. And these animation details, if you select things like the global control, you can have all those switches right here, and you can even animate them at any point. And this is very, very good, because at any point, right, you can, for example, let's let's key. You already learned how to key, so I shouldn't be, going over any other instructor, body of work. So I'm going to simply create a key for these three. Before I start creating keys and making a mess of everything, I'm going to select, right, my global control, and you're going to see this is the right arm, right? And I should have an arm R FKIK switch. And if I click it, you're going to see that it switches, right, from FK to IK, and it keeps, the same exact pose. And that is really jaw-dropping that you can have that. Sometimes it fails, sometimes it's not that accurate, but for things that are facing forward and not making like a very weird maximum, very stretchy type of thing, it should work exactly like that. So you should be able to switch from FK to IK without even a flinch. All right. So that means that part of your animation could be maybe like some sort of swinging of the arm, and that is how you should be using, the forward kinematics to create, pendulums and stuff like that. But at some point, you want to stop that, create a key on your, again, we can select it from down here, and we can change, these to IK, and we can continue our movement with an IK motion, right? So remember that you have all those, IK, FK switches here, and that you can animate them at any point, right, in your animation. So make the best use of all the controls. FK controls, very good for pendulum type of motions, right? And IK controls are very good for positional and contacts, right? So if he needs to touch something or hang on something, right? That is the way to do it. And the cool thing is that we're going to cover in this. You can switch the actual space, and you can see that, for example, right now, the actual space of this is global. So mainly it's under either the body offset. Yeah, it's under the body offset, right? But if you actually move, your character, the IKs are in a separate space. So it's like you have a perfect control there, all right? In terms of the contact. Cool. So that is very, very good. You have other controls down here in the actual global control, and those are the spine IK switch, right? And the neck IK FK switch. So these will, let me tell you the truth. I'm going to select one control and hit Ctrl-Shift-G, and not everything is rose color in the control rig. And this spine FK switch, I wish it worked like, the FK control rig, FK IK switch from the arms, but this one does have a little bit of a flinch. And if you keep, turn it in on and off, you can see that it starts traveling. You can even create some sort of, wacky animation with it just by, creating this click, 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 click. So yeah, it's not perfect. So this is the kind of switches that you want to make sure if you want to use it, you want to start animating from scratch, you turn it on and leave it on, right? And the good thing is that this now performs a little bit more like a IK movement, right, with a change. But the best about this is that you can use this new spine stretch switch, right? And this one, that's lovely, that yoga pose, that is magnificent. All right, so you have this spine stretch switch that will only work if you are in IK. FK cannot, it will stretch, but as you see, it will very wrongly stretch. So if you turn those on, you can turn the actual stretchy option on, and you can, yeah, you can stretch your character. So FK will do it again, but it will do it like, hello, I'm Mr. Deformed. But that's not what we want, right? We want to make sure, right, that we, select our global control. We go to our left arm IK. And then from the IK control, we also have the stretchy switch, and this one will allow you to do this. So what would happen if you don't have the stretch switch? The control will go forth, above and beyond, the actual shape of your character. But if you turn on, stretchy, then you have Plastic Man. All right. Someone said the Plastic Man is the most powerful superhero, and I was a little bit dumbfounded by that. But yeah, so let's continue. All right. So we checked most of all the controls. We're going to have one stretch control also for the neck, right? As soon as we, create that, the control, I'm guessing it should be hello neck control. I don't know if I turn it on. Yeah, it is. So where is it? Maybe is like this. No. So again, the spine IK stretchy controls are not ready yet for production. Use it sparingly, but yeah, it's really cool, right? So let me drop everything, Control-Shift-G. Sadly, when you hit Control-Shift-G, even, the actual switches go back, to their normal, behavior. So be aware of that. If you want your character to be fully IK, you can go to the actual control brick and set them up to be by default, on if you want that. If we have time at the end, we're going to, we can mute the transform for FK arm controls. You can mute the full control, but not a channel of the control, sadly. So am I right? No, you can actually mute just the component. All right, that seems cool. So let's test that theory. So it's going to be on, and if I select everything, Control-Shift-G, no, it doesn't care if it's muted or not, right? So yeah, it's something to keep in mind, right? Cool. Now, let's talk a little bit about that thing that we were talking about, sharing, the actual control brick, right? That is a big thing. I don't want to be creating a control brick for every character. I want to have a very easy way, right, to share, my control brick with other characters that I know that are, related and compatible, with this character. This character is, believe it or not, it had a lot of engineering behind the hood. And that is because this dude right here is the missing link. This one is compatible with the old mannequin, and it's also compatible with the metahuman, right? So we can compatibilize anything, from the old school to the new, metahumans, all right? So yeah, every Epic Game character that you can find in the Epic Game marketplace should be available to use, this control brick, right? And let me prove it to you. I'm going to close up this sequencer, right? I can, be gone. Thank you for coming and participating, Mr. Manny. But your services will be required later, right? So you can see that I have a bunch of other animations here. Sorry, a lot of other folders here, right? I have the, actor core, and I have the mockup basic, and, I even have metahumans and stuff. But for example, let's go to this actor core sample, and you can see that it has a couple of, idle walks and pose dance. So these are all animation clips, or what are called animation assets, animation sequences, right? So if you double click on that, you're going to see that, there is an actual animation behind, this thing, right? But the thing is that each and every one, let me rewind a little bit. All right. So I got all of these actor core sample motions by going to my Epic Marketplace, and I will search for action core, and you're going to get this thing right here, actor, this one right here, and I just add it to my project, and that's how, it's inside, this particular project. But the thing is that once you add it, they need like an actual character to hold those animations, right? And it's not your character. Like it would be wonderful if we could say, right, Epic, I want these animations in my project attached to my character, right? But it's not how it's happening right now. So you might need to do an extra step, right? If and only if that character is, a complete separate, character that is not, related to Mannequin, and you can actually go down here and actually see that it will say somewhere here, rigged to Epic Skeleton. Yes, this is all you need to know. This right here tells you I can use the contour rig, right? Or I could also, share my animations with any other character that happens to be rigged to the Epic Skeleton. So how to do that? Let's stop the rambling and let's go to the bone. So the first exercise is going to be, I want these animations from the actor core samples to be on my Manny character, right? On these contour rig character mannequin meshes, right? I want all those animations because, again, if I open up, this skeletal mesh, if I go to animations, there's, a couple of animations there, but yeah, there are just, to perform that thing, that will deform and not lose volume and stuff. So those are technical animations. Don't you even, care about those? But what I want to do is be able to use those animations from the actor core in this character, so I can bake them, to my contour rig and, keep using them that way. So this is going to be the first exercise, right? To achieve that, you're going to have to go to your character, open up, either the skeletal mesh or the skeleton, right? I'm going to open up the skeleton. And in the skeleton, you can see that weirdly enough, it has many tabs up here. This is what used to be, or it's still called the persona editor or the skeletal mesh editor. You have many tabs, like for animations, the skeletal mesh, and for the skeleton. All of them will have an actual asset details. But what happens if you go to the skeleton? There is no asset detail here. Well, there is. It might not be by default, but you can go up here to window and you can go down here where it says asset detail, and you are going to be able to see this right here that says compatible skeletons, right? And all right, let's do it. Let's create a new element in this array. And I'm going to open this up and I'm going to search for core, right? Like action core, right? The searches here are great because they are not like dumb searches. It will search like places where things are called core also. So both of these skeletons are, the actual skeletons from the action core, animations that I, added to my project, right? So I'm going to simply select either one of them. I may need to select both if I want all the animations, right? So for now, I'm going to select just the female, dummy, and I'm going to save, right? And yeah, that's going to be everything that I need. Again, this will only happen from the actual skeleton tab of your persona editor / animation skeletal mesh editor, right? And you need to go Windows and open up the asset detail and create a new element to the array and select the donor, right? This is going to be the actual source, right? Let's test this. Let's see if this is working. And that is going to be easily achieved by selecting my queen. Let's give, this chance. Girl, you can do it. Let's move our queen, put it there. And now I'm going to go to right click on an empty spot in my content browser, go to cinematics, create a level sequencer, double click on that level sequencer so it's open. I can grab my queen, drop her inside my level sequencer, and that is going to create the actor track, the animation track, control rig mannequin body that I'm going to delete for now. All right, trust me, because what I really want is to add an animation. And because I did that thing of making that actor core compatible with this character, I'm going to be able to check things like, yeah, like aerobatic dance, right? Remember, this character doesn't come with any animation on it, right? These ones are being loaned, right, by the other character. And the good thing is now I can, that character doesn't have a control break, right? But this one does. So now I can right click on my queen and say bake to control break. Remember something really, really good. To add a control break, you track, right? To bake to a control break, you right click, right? That is two places, right? Where you're going to be able to add the control break track, right? Right click to bake, add track to add, all right? If you add it, it's going to be simply on top and it's not going to have like any information on it. So it's not going to do squat. But if you right click on your character and you go bake to control break, we're going to be using, you know, the normal one, right? The CR, the mannequin body, CR mannequin body. This one is the horrible thing that I did. So this one is the one that we really want. And this is where inverse, that is not called inverse, is, oh my God, how it's called? Is the forward?
Backwards.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. So this is the backward solve at work, right? So let's hit create. And that's it. Now we have, instead, you can see that the actual animation, now it's gray out. And that means that, you know, it's not active, right? And whatever is moving this character, it is the actual controls. So the animation that used to be here now is in the actual controls. It's going to be baked, granted, and it's going to be a mess to work with it, right? If we don't know the magic of working with the, you know, with the curve editor, and we're going to get there very soon. But yeah, this is how you would, you know, actually bake, right? And I don't know if this was already taught before, but yeah, this is good to know. At any point, I can, you know, release this control from, you know, from here. And if I want my animation back, I can simply, you know, set it active again, and that's it, right? So very soon we're going to learn how to create those control breaks, you know, animate on top of it, you know, a little bit, maybe delete a little bit about it, and or create like additive, right, to those. But for now, just, you know, now you know that you can do this for sure. All right. So good. Now, but when did the construction event was at work? Well, let me tell you when. I'm going to grab my money and drop it right on top, you know, of our girl here, right? I want her to be, something. It's all right. It could be side to side. So you can see that they have a little bit of a, you know, difference in the broad of the shoulders and the actual, you know, height, right? So if I create a control rig for queen, right, by tracking control rig, asset-based control rig, and CR mannequin body, right? The actual position of all the controls were driven by the construction event one time, right? And now you can see that if I, you know, add my money character right here, it will have, you know, its own control rig. And if you put them, you know, on top of each other, you can see that there are differences, right? And that is that construct event happening. So as soon as that control rig was created, it first checked, you know, the actual position of the bone, move the control to that position, and that's why you can use the same control rig for the same skeleton, but for two different proportionate characters that are assigned to the same skeleton, right? And in these few minutes, we still have a few minutes, we're going to do the opposite. I want to use the control rig on any other character, right? So I don't have any good characters here. Like I have like all those, and I'm sorry if I do this. All right, I'm going to do it. Yeah, you can use it on your own downloaded character, right? But I'm going to do it from here. I'm going to search my beloved knight. That's not how you, no. Yeah, Gothic Knight, add to project. And it's going to be in the mockup layering. It's the mockup layering. It should be the control rig one, but it's the same. It's the same project. You can use it either ways. Right? And now I should have my G Knight here. And this character for sure doesn't have a control rig, right? I can drop it here, right? And I can, add it to my sequencer, and there is no control rig there. There's no way, right, that we can have a control rig on this character. And look at the actual proportions also of this character right here. So look at this. This dude is completely different, right? Right. Well, let's do the next exercise. I'm going to, that's because I have only select control rig things, right? So let me select him, go to details, open up, and I can get to that character from, this thumbnail right here. And because this is the persona editor, I have access to things like animations. He just have this animation, bless him. Right. But I can also go to the skeleton, and now I'm going to make this character compatible with a character that does have a control rig. So let's create a new array, and let's select here control rig, right? And I'm going to have Bungeeman. Bungeeman is not compatible, so but the SK mannequin should be compatible with this character. So I just made it compatible, right? And again, this is not going to be inceptions, like making one character compatible with another will give the superpowers, to the next one. This is just going to acquire, original characteristic from that character. So it's not because the actual mannequin doesn't have any animations. We are not going to have new animations, but we are going to have the ability of doing the next thing. And that is, if I remember to save everything, and I apparently did, I can now add my Gothic Knight in my sequencer, right? And I can track, and I can go to control rig. And if you go here and you don't see anything, it might be because, the filter by animated controls might be on. So be sure, maybe if you want to make sure, release this. But now I can use my CR mannequin body, and it looks a little bit funky. But what if I select this and Control Shift G? Control Shift G. No. All right, this was working. All right, that's the class. Bye-bye. No, let me try to fix this one. It should work because of the construction event, right? But it's not working. So I'm going to try to do one last thing. I'm going to delete this control rig, right? And I want to make sure, and you're still not at the point where you know about retargeting, but I'm going to do something. Close your eyes. I want to make sure that in my control, in my skeleton tree, I have my retargeting options. I'm going to set them all to be translation, retargeting, skeleton, and just the root is going to be animation, and the pelvis is going to be animation. Let me see if this helps my case. It should. Let me try it one more time. If it doesn't happen, I might be wrong, but I'm never wrong. Oh, I'm wrong. That's weird. So yeah, something changed, and this character should be compatible with this one. Well, we still have a way out, right? Let me back up a little bit, and that is because if you check on your actual control rig and you go to characters, mannequins, you should have the old mannequins. Am I right? No, I have only the new ones. That's no bueno. Well, all right. I think that what I tested was with the older. We still have time. We have 10 minutes, Gabriel. You can do it. Right. I'm going to command this so I can show you that this thing works and you are going to be able to have a control break for your characters. So apparently this one is misbehaving. I really want to have a control break on this character. So follow me if you can. Follow me if you're there, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, and this is going to be weird, I'm going to hit Odd, and I'm going to go add feature or content pack. And I'm going to add the third person, right? I'm going to hit add to project. And what that is going to do is to add, the template of the third person, right, to my project here. And this should give me a character, right, folder. And in this one, I do have the old character, the old mannequin, this one, and it will come with the actual old rig. Are you a rig? Let me check that out. What would happen if I go mesh and add these to a sequencer? Let me go back here and need to go to control rigs, character, mannequins, meshes. This is the actual sequencer that I was using. Now, what if, let me see if I'm right. If I'm wrong, I'm going to look very, very foolish. But if I'm right, this is going to be awesome. So I'm going to drag this dude, put it there, add it here. Do you have a control rig? Oh, they remove it. I'm so sad. I'm really, really so sad. So I'm guessing like if you want to do that exact thing that I did, with a control rig, you're going to have to download the actual control rig for, the old content. And that is this one right here. All right. So this one, if you have like a very old character, that you want to have the actual control rig on it, you might want to download this package. All right. And then you're going to make compatible that character with this character, and you're going to have a control rig for your character. All right. Sadly, that didn't work for some reason. I was very sure that this was going to work, but that is all our time. We didn't get the actual chance of doing like an actual control rig, but if we have enough time in the actual lab and we run out of questions, I'm sure that we're going to be able to do like a simple rig, right? Of an arm, or maybe, some character that, by popularity wins, right? And we can, rig it, right? So we have a couple of questions. We have like thousands of questions. And I know that we're going to be able to answer all those. So let's do one thing. Let's go back here and check that we have covered everything. So we apply our control rig to our character, inside a sequencer, and we play a little bit about it, right? We drop it into a level. The sequencer will open, the animation mode is going to be switched, and you're going to have all the controls there, and you're going to be able to start, keyframing, right? And if you want to do it the other way, right? Like we did here, like we created an empty sequencer, then we can add our character to our scene and then add it to our sequencer. And that way we're going to have a control rig created. So if it jumps to your mind, like why, a particular control rig is added when you add a particular character, let me show you that like fairly fast. So why, when I add, money to a sequencer, these control rig appear there? Well, that is because if you double click on the actual, let me delete him from here so we can try it again. If we go to money, right, and we double click on the skeletal mesh and we go to the asset details and we go a little bit down, you're going to see that there is an actual default animation rig. And, by default, it is the CR mannequin body. But what if, I want it to be the biped basic, the basic biped? Where is it? Let me search for it. Basic biped. Here it is, right? So I switch, the actual CR mannequin one, right? For this other one here, I'm going to save my money and close it up. And I'm going to add my money now to my sequencer, and plop. Now he has his neck broken. No, if you, click on the actual control rig and Control Shift G, that should, fix that neck. And, that's it. This is another control rig, right? And this one is pretty awesome, mainly in the foot department, because this one has inverse. Oh, it's not this one. It may be. All right. So this one should be the. All right. It's not the one that I wanted. Where are you? Is this one? Come on. Is it this one? All right. So yeah, this one is the tip of the foot, which is great. And you will also have, is it this one? No, this is one for the heel, right? This is also amazing to have, but you should also have, oh, that's weird. I thought at some point that there was one that will do the actual, let me keep searching. So it's not this one, it's not this one, is it this one? This one is for this. Maybe it's one that I'm not seeing. Give me just a second. It should be this one. And why is it not working? Oh, it's because you need to move it. Sorry, this is the one that I was looking for. So when you need to have like heel, contact, and then on your movement, you want to do this. This one is amazing. This control, the inverse foot, it's amazing to have like a really cool, walking cycle. So this is really, really amazing for that particular type of control, right? So this is massive, right? How it's made? It's not Halloween. Sorry. When it's Halloween, if you wanna, be really, really scared, you wanna go and check that particular control rig. Because if the normal control rig, the new modern control rig is a little bit, obscure, that one really, let me show you the normal, new modern control rig. It's filled to the brim, with, it's this thing right here, right? And not only that, but it has like functions, and you can get inside those functions, and you get more math inside those. Well, if that is not a horror story, if you check the actual basic biped one, is just this, right? And this is massive, like it's connected everywhere. This one is very, 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 very complex, right? You have things just for the functions, just for the leg. And if you go here to my blueprints, you can see that you have like several different functions, right? And each and every one of them will have, their own trees inside. So yeah, this is not for the faint-hearted. This thing, and now they added the backward solve. That's good. It used, it didn't have the backward solve for a time. But yeah, here it is. This is all there is, right? If you want to spend a good tenure here, yeah, go ahead and pick it up and pick it apart and see how it works. All right. But yeah, it's fairly complex. But the good thing is that this will have its own amount of controls in terms of the shoulder, and it's going to be fully IK. So this one is really great to start animating from scratch. Really, the pole control is great. I'm thinking that these are already, spline type of animations. This one does not have stretchy controls, so but for any other control, like it will work like perfectly, in that sense. This one is to rotate, yeah. And this one maybe to rotate and move. Yep. All right, so we made it. We made it through. We're going to have a fun lab after this one. So we're going to take a couple of minutes. I don't know how much minutes that should be, maybe 5 minutes. And then we're going to get back to the lab.